I've got 100 days to terraform this mysterious ocean planet, using some fancy machines and lots of conveyor belts. Can I turn this place into a refuge for humanity, or will it get the best of me? This is Eden Crafter's Ocean World, sponsored by War Thunder. My spaceship landed nicely enough on day 1,
Low energy.
but now it's out of energy. I do have this handy multi-tool though, that definitely doesn't look like anything I've ever seen before. I used it to collect some random ores that were sticking out of the ground until my oxygen started to get low again and I headed back to my ship.
Oh, oxygen.
Next, I got out this neat little drone
Meow.
and used it to build my first living compartment before completely forgetting about the drone. Oops, better get some air. Inside the compartment, I put this workbench where I can make basic materials. Then I went back out to gather some more resources. This time I found a large iron deposit, but I'll need something stronger to mine it. I can mine this dirt though, which is nice.
Oh, I dug a hole.
After that, I added this electric panel to my house and another compartment, then this big drill for the iron deposit and a plant grower inside. Between me and the drill, I had plenty of resources to make the materials I needed for this assembly bench next. I made some storage too, a wind turbine for power, an advanced drill. Then I discovered this cave of sulfur nearby. I gathered a couple and left the rest for now, heading back to check out the new advanced drill. Aside from just getting iron a lot faster, you can also connect this drill to a conveyor belt to start automating things, so I won't have to stand here and craft everything myself anymore. I spent my first night trying to attach the parts producer to the conveyor belt, but that wasn't working, and I was so into trying to problem solve it, I almost let myself run out of oxygen. Yeah, don't guess I'll do very well if I'm dead. Eventually, I figured out by morning that you need to place the machine, then attach the conveyor belt, only to discover this particular machine wasn't the one I needed yet. Instead, I needed to run the ore through this forge first to turn it into ingots. That's better. The next morning, I was out of my initial supply of food and used the organics from the plant grower to craft some food cans and turned the rest of the organics into rubber. Then got right back to work. I added this big storage and another conveyor to transfer the ingot from the forge before noticing something about the water.
Has that been there the whole time?
There was a wall of water off in the distance. It was so big and far away, I wasn't even sure if it was moving, but it definitely was. Well, that can't be good. Hope this little compartment is waterproof. Thankfully, I survived and was rewarded with some tips on how to launch a rocket that can somehow stop it. Yeah, I don't think I'm quite ready for that yet. Better go see what the damage is. I worried everything might be gone, but looks like it only got the wind turbine. Easy enough. I put 2 back in its place, cause I'm definitely gonna be needing more power. I added this conveyor splitter next, then went searching for more copper so I could make circuit boards for a part producer.
Copper.
While I was out, I managed to find a few pieces until I realized I was getting low on oxygen.
Ooh, run.
I'd wandered pretty far and was nervous I wouldn't make it back in time. I did make it back though and got right to work turning the copper into ingots, then to plates, and finally circuit boards. I was only able to make one of these part producers for now. I needed more iron beams and gears, which was no problem with all the iron ingots I had in storage now. It was already completely full. The copper, on the other hand, I was having to find piece by piece on the ground still. Looks like I know what my next goal is: finding a copper deposit. I gathered enough to finish the second part producer and set it beside the other one. After fighting to get them lined up the way I wanted, I set them up to make iron plates and iron rods. Then sent them to this V2 storage, which had 2 inputs. Isn't it so satisfying? Just ignore the fact that I still didn't get things lined up right. I was hooked on the automation setup and looking forward to building more, but first I still need more copper. So I went back to a simple trick I used a lot back in my Planet Crafter 100 days: oxygen outposts. I traveled a little ways away from my base and made a new compartment there, allowing me to explore this area further away without having to worry too much about breathing. There was still plenty of fresh copper to gather here, and I gathered as much as I could before heading back to my main base when it started to get dark. Food cans for dinner. That night, I made my first gear improvement, an oxygen tank. There was also a battery I could make to improve my energy, and I set out early the next morning to gather more sulfur for it. Guess it helps if I equipped that oxygen tank. I was able to make the battery now and equipped it too, almost doubling the energy I have to run. Am I a robot? Well, I suppose I wouldn't need oxygen then, would I? It was day 3 now, and I headed a slightly different direction to explore, passing this big quartz deposit on the way. I didn't need it yet and continued up over this hill to place another compartment for oxygen. There, I gathered more loose resources and finally found exactly what I was looking for, a copper deposit. I could see my base through this little tunnel and headed back for the materials to make another advanced drill. I grabbed everything I needed and then some before going back and made one more compartment there before placing the drill. At that point, I remember I should probably be keeping an eye on the water and popped up over this hill to check it. Yep, there's the wave again. It hadn't done too much damage last time, but I wasn't about to find out what happens if I stay outside, so I went to the main base where I had a better view to wait for the wave. I gathered rock and made cement while I waited, getting a small jump scare when I overloaded my inventory. Then it wasn't long and the wave arrived. Just like before, it took out my wind turbines. They were easy enough to build back though. Now back through the copper hole. This time I added a forge to turn the ore into ingots, then a part producer. I changed my mind though and switched it for a splitter. I set up a part producer again for one side and had to work on some extra pieces first before I could make the second. Once it was done, I connected them with conveyors and now I've got copper plates and wire automated. Now I just need to add some storage. I didn't have enough iron plates to finish the conveyor belts though and made a quick trip back through the hole. I had plenty of plates and rods stored up at my first base and added a bit of extra power while I was there too before going to finish the copper conveyors. As it got dark, I added some storage and a trash can there, then traveled back yet again. And I worked that night on making this analysis radar. It scans the area, revealing nearby deposits. I wasn't sure how to work it at first, trying to find a button or some sort of screen on it, until I noticed that they were all showing up on my HUD. Ooh, there they are. The next morning, I placed this new solar panel for power, hoping maybe the wave wouldn't wash it away. Then this beacon that marks the location, and set off to find some of the ore deposits that were now showing on my compass. I noticed a copper and iron deposit close together, along with some other stuff, and started setting up my next base.
I think I found the perfect spot. We got copper, iron, rock.
I got drills going on most of the deposits before running out of gears and heading back to get some more. But I'd been so excited about the new place, I'd completely forgotten about the wave.
Oh, hello, wave.
I made it just in time, and as the wave washed over, I was thinking about another game. Our sponsor, War Thunder. War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made, and it's available now for free on PC, console, and mobile devices. You can take command of over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships from 10 major nations, and customize them with plenty of camouflage, historical markings, and decoration, including community-created designs. I love the extremely satisfying X-ray view War Thunder gives you with damage, showing each component and affecting your vehicle accordingly. Join a worldwide community of over 95 million players and immerse yourself in the realistic graphics and authentic sound effects of War Thunder. Play War Thunder now for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or mobile. Use my links in the pinned comment or video description and get a massive bonus pack, including the exclusive vehicle decorator, Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days premium account for new and returning players that haven't played in at least 6 months for PC and console. Available for a limited time only, so check it out now. When I was done daydreaming, I wasn't surprised at all to find the wave had broken my solar panel and just placed down a couple more turbines. It's only an annoyance right now, but probably gonna have to get that stopped before we start moving civilians here. To save inventory space, I crafted a few things here, then with my pockets full, set back off for the new base.
I'm gonna get there eventually. It's so bumpy, but also so smooth when you walk over it. There it is.
I added one more drill on an iron deposit, then started placing and connecting forges. This one turns the rock into cement, and I set up storage for it. As I was setting up this part producer I didn't even need, I was so busy trying to figure it out, I almost forgot something I really needed. Oxygen. Oops, that was a close one. I added more power and this light next, which really didn't seem to do much at all, then continued working on more automation. While working, I was struggling with my inventory and made a bit of a mess, so I put down a trash can to get rid of a few things before getting back to work. I was doing a whole lot of rearranging, trying to make things at least slightly organized. I started on copper, but needed more circuit boards, of course. When the copper was finished, I placed this new assembling machine to start automating the circuit board, but then I was out of iron plates and couldn't connect it. I had plenty of iron plates back at my first base. I didn't want to have to keep traveling back and forth though, and started working on automating the iron plates and rods here. Then, as I was crafting some iron beams for the next thing, I missed this all-important beep. Luckily, I noticed the giant wave out of the corner of my eye and turned around to go back inside. After the wave passed, I replaced all the power equipment again, and then finally finished setting up my first assembling machine. With copper plates and silica connected, I could now automate circuit boards. I noticed a problem that night though. This double storage was just putting wire out now instead of the plates I needed, so I demolished it and made another big mess I had to stop and clean up. Then I put in 2 separate storage containers instead. Oh, and made one more mess. Eventually, I got it all sorted and started working on my next assembling machine, this time for iron beams. And it had the same problem as the other. The storage just outputs both inputs mixed, so I separated these two, finishing my setup for iron beams. I was so excited, I almost forgot to breathe. After that, I split off the iron rods to make gears and checked over the hill for the wave. Nope, nothing yet. I placed this refiner for the cobalt next, and one for the silica too. They needed water to work, and I set off to make my first water pump. On the way, I noticed the wave was definitely on its way too, and I made myself a compartment first, then set up the pump and a first bit of pipe just in time. It turned night as I made my way back for more iron plate, and to replace my power supply, I put down the usual turbines and a small solar panel this time, before going back to finish the pipe. I made this pipe hub and connected the cobalt refiner first, but I only had enough water to power one, so I just switched the connection for now to make a few of each. Then it was time to make something really exciting. I'd made a bunch of glass from silica and had all the other materials I needed automated so I could make this new T1 warehouse. It was huge and had 5 different inputs. Most excitingly, it allows you to craft and build from its storage, which will make managing my personal storage a lot easier. Building it unlocked this rocket launch site I'll need to build to stop the wave. Looks like I've got a lot of work to do. First though, I think it's about time I make myself a better base. I started with some platforms before changing my mind, then placed one right on top of myself by accident, ending up in quite the predicament. Luckily, I didn't fall through the world, and was able to continue my horribly indecisive building process. By the end of the day, I had it mostly done, just in time for another wave to come. I had thought it felt like the wave was coming a little later each day. Now I knew it was. And this time, it gave me an interesting cinematic. Guess I wasn't facing the right way. The wave passed, and I made these better storage shelves inside. Then I started sending materials to the new warehouse. The conveyor belts didn't seem to care about clipping through each other, or much of anything really, so I took my time trying to keep things from getting too crazy. That day, I placed these new large solar panels, which it says is resistant to extreme conditions. Hopefully that means it's giant wave proof. I placed another analysis radar, hoping it would reveal some new deposits. I needed a lot of something called basalt concrete to make the rocket platform. The refiner said it could make it, and I wondered if maybe it just turned cement into the stuff, but I tried that with no luck. Instead, I ended up making a bunch more glass, which for some reason I haven't automated yet, and used it to make another big warehouse. I did end up automating the glass finally, splitting the silica supply off to a parts producer, then sending it to the warehouse along with cement, ceramic parts, and refined cobalt. I'd almost forgotten about the wave until I got this warning as I was placing my first greenhouse. Better get inside. The wave came with the sunrise this time, and thanks to the improved solar panels, I didn't have to rebuild anything and got right back to work. I changed my mind about the greenhouse placement, then couldn't make this part producer because I was out of gears. So I made an extra long conveyor belt to connect my gear production to the first warehouse. Being able to craft from storage was making things a lot easier. Back at the greenhouse, I plugged in water and got things set up to make rubber from organic, then sent it to another part producer to make rubber belts. I needed them for rotors, which I was having to make for all sorts of things. Like this assembling machine I'm going to set up to auto-craft them. I sent them to the warehouse too, and things were starting to look a little crazy around here. Machines, conveyors, and pipes were everywhere. Deciding to take a break from the madness, I built this ship platform next and set off to my first base to get my ship. It was sitting right where I'd landed, and I hopped in, completely forgetting it didn't have any energy. Oops. Luckily, the range on the warehouses is huge, and I had all the materials I needed already to craft 2 of the vehicle energy cells. I plugged them into the slots, and just like that, I was in the sky. This is much better than walking. I parked it for now and placed my first ground fertilizer. It required a water supply, and I took it down, for some reason choosing to walk the whole way to the water instead of taking the ship. There, I built 2 more pumps, added a pipe hub to connect them to the water supply, and then walked back, balancing on the pipe. I placed the fertilizer again and hooked it up to water, finally making my first start on some sort of terraforming. Except now I didn't have enough power. I had a brain fart and started placing more of the large solar panels at first, until I realized it was night, and that was probably the problem to start with. I placed just a couple of wind turbines for now, figuring it'd be morning soon enough and another wave was coming to wash them away anyway. In the meantime, I stuck some random stuff for crafting in an empty warehouse slot and went to check on the wave. It was definitely there, but looked pretty far off, and I decided it was time to explore another area. I didn't go too far, placing a compartment and finding another cave of sulfur to mine. Then I went back to check the wave just in time. Yep, better get in the box. I headed back after that, finding that the ground was starting to turn a lot greener near my base now. I added this ship recall station, and then made a computer for this new planet analyzer I'd unlocked. Looks like I've still got a lot of work to do, and my next objective is more fertilization. Well, that should be easy enough. I made a 3rd energy cell for my ship, and took off to make more ground fertilizers. I figured it would be easier just to place them close to the water this time, so I wouldn't have to run as much pipe. Crafting from the warehouse made it easy, but I did have to add its own solar panel for power, and I almost forgot about breathing again. When I finished the setup of 2 more fertilizers, I headed home to make some filters for an even bigger fertilizer, and got a notification I'd completed Terraformation Stage 1.
Woohoo!
I made the filters and took them back to place this big boy, the area fertilizer. It had an extra input, though, for organic from a greenhouse. That was easy enough to add, and I took a quick look at my work before getting back in my ship.
Yeah. Spit out them bushes.
At base, I was trying to figure out what I needed to do next. This new material analyzer and rock deposit scanner I'd unlocked both needed a microscope, which I didn't know how to make yet. Then I got the notification I'd completed Terraformation Stage 2, which improved my analysis radar to find gold and unlocked this reinforced compartment. It caught me by surprise. I'd never even looked at the requirements for Stage 2, and went outside to find there were trees now down by some of my fertilizers.
There's trees.
And the ground was even greener. I got stuck in the ground after as I went to check the wave,
I'm stuck. Oh, this thing.
which could have been really bad. Then got stuck again on these stairs before going on a hunt for more osmium or whatever else I might find. I could have taken my ship, but I was grabbing loose osmium from the ground as I went and hoping to find a deposit. By the next morning, I'd reached the end of my island and spotted 2 more across the water. I bet I'll find something new over on those. I knew from my map the island to the west was hot and set my sights on exploring the east island soon. First though, I have to get back home. I don't think I'll be swimming that. I turned the tiny bit of osmium I had found into ingot and had a look at my planet analyzer. I could see this was still at 0%, and I needed to make a base on the hot island to reach the next stage. Then it was almost time for another wave. While I waited, I started splitting off some things for a new warehouse storage, like these iron rods I'd just been turning straight to gears. I took a quick breath break in my ship
I think I see the wave coming.
when I was reminded of the giant wave on its way. Yep, time to get inside. I spent the rest of my day rearranging and splitting things, working to have more in the warehouses for crafting. Then set off that night in my ship to explore. I stopped at some deposits I spotted from the air first, but with no luck finding anything new, I set off across the water to the southeast island. Only as soon as I got over the water, my ship took a nosedive. I ended up using the precise control with the mouse and made it across, landing right on top of a new deposit, sulfur. There was also uranium and diamond here on the ground. Luckily, I was able to access the warehouse storage all the way over here, and I placed a drill on the sulfur first. Then gathered all the uranium and diamond nearby before noticing this very red-colored rock that ended up being phosphate. I put a drill on it too and continued checking out the island when I noticed a much darker rock.
Ooh!
It was the basalt I needed for the rocket launch pad. I got right to work putting down a drill and refinery along with a water system to connect it to. I left it to work and explored the island more, mostly just finding more of the same. I had to stop when I noticed the wave was trying to sneak up on me and built a window in my compartment this time so I could watch. Then headed back to where I'd landed my ship and worked on setting up another refinery there to turn the sulfur into sulfuric acid. And then a third that night too for fertilizer from phosphorus. I gathered up some of the new stuff and headed back in my ship on day 13. Of course, my ship wanted to go swimming again, and I had to fight the controls to get it home. Once I made it safely, I dumped the stuff in an empty slot in one of the warehouses and was excited to use the uranium to craft myself this high-capacity battery that more than doubled my energy. I was too excited after that and got mixed up, thinking it would also work for my ship, and made a second one. Yeah, it doesn't work in the ship. Turns out its upgrade is a nuclear energy cell, and we're not quite there yet. With the basalt though, I could make this upgraded T2 warehouse, which also ups the stack size by 10 for all items when you place it up to 50. I didn't connect anything to it yet, only sticking some random resources and parts inside for now, enjoying the fact that I could stack 30. After that, I took another look at the planet analyzer and noticed this objectives tab. It had some useful info about ores I hadn't found yet and what they unlock. Like the gold ore is found primarily in hot regions and unlocks that microscope I was needing for the rock deposit scanner and material analyzer. Problem is, I also need that gold to make the reinforced compartment that helps protect you from the heat. I finished out the evening splitting off copper wire to a warehouse so I could use it for crafting all these computers. I was enjoying the new greenery and flew to the water to set up more ground fertilizers the next morning. They only required 30 water each, so I was able to set up 3 on one water pump, along with a solar panel to power it all. After that, I headed to the new island and placed an analysis radar to help me find more deposits, not even noticing the one I needed had shown up in this little group on my map. I had plans to take care of first anyway, though. I placed another T2 warehouse here and spent a while trying to set up everything on conveyors to it. When that was finished, I decided this place needed more green too, and headed to the water, where I saw another wave was on its way. I put down a compartment, only I couldn't get inside it. Oops. I moved it, then pushed my luck a little, placing this water pump and collecting a few resources before the wave hit. I got back to work after it passed, placing a greenhouse and pipes for this area fertilizer. Then, as night fell, I had an idea. I made my way back to the ship and flew over to the hot island. I was nervous approaching, and even more nervous to get out of my ship, but I was figuring it would be cooler at night, and sure enough, when I got out, I didn't die. It didn't take me long to find my first prize, a piece of gold ore. Just what I was looking for. There was a ton of it, and I made my way up to this cave hoping for a gold mine. Instead, there was a bunch of pretty purple amethyst inside. I gathered it all and then collected as much gold and osmium as I could before the sun started to rise, along with the temperature. Time to go. Crossing the water this time was the scariest yet. I don't know what it is with the controls on this thing, but I really don't want to take it for a swim. Once I made it across the water, I stopped on the point of the southeast island, where I'd seen the big clump of deposits on my map, and it was way better than I ever could have expected. I could see a big green deposit I knew must be uranium, but hiding behind this sulfur was a crazy looking spiky deposit that ended up being gold. There was iron here too, and a second gold deposit, then cobalt. I put down a warehouse first and some power, then a mine on the gold. I placed the splitter after and sent one side through a forge and into storage. I tried to put a drill down on the uranium, but it just wasn't having it. I dug out some dirt around it, hoping that might help. I guess I just need a different drill though. With plenty of gold now, I took my ship back to the main island base, fighting its nosedive the whole way. I made some insulation layers with the gold I'd collected, and took a quick break to do some decorating. Now time for something really exciting. I had enough basalt concrete in storage now to make the rocket launch site. The thing was huge and ended up half buried when I placed it, so I spent a while trying to clean it off. Then I checked what I needed to make the actual rocket. Most of the parts I'd already automated with plenty in storage, except for the filters. I crafted those and could see one more big wave coming in on my way back. Maybe I'll just kill some time clearing out this dirt. Now I think I might miss the wave when it's gone. I let the last one pass and built the rocket that night, sending it off into the sky. The cutscene was quite long, and as I was waiting, I heard an all too familiar beep. My oxygen was low.
How do I get back to my oxygen? I'm dying. I need to go back! Take me back! No, I'm dying! Let me in! I was dying.
That was the end of the wave, and the next day I started working on all the things I could make since I'd found gold, like this sensor array and the microscope I'd been needing for this material analyzer. I made some filters so I could analyze sulfur first, and it unlocked all sorts of new stuff. I checked to see what I could analyze next, but it was graphene, something I hadn't found yet. That's okay, I've got plenty of new stuff to make anyway. I started with this improved oxygen tank, then this giant battery that stores solar power to run things at night, and finally this cute little steamroller. I had to make it a battery just like my ship, then tested it out a bit. I decided to make it a platform and a road. The platform recharges my ship, and I figured it would do the same for the vehicle, but it didn't. So I got rid of that and parked it behind my base for now, making this bed in the wall I'd unlocked, which doesn't work yet, but looks kinda nice. I spent the rest of the day increasing my mess of conveyor belts, splitting off iron rods and copper plates to automate antennas. I traveled back to the second island on day 17. It had several different ores close to each other, allowing me to set up some new automations. I set up a greenhouse for rubber and split off some gold to make gold wire, set drills on copper and gold for crafting these plated connectors, and then a couple more drills on iron and sulfur to craft these filters I've been needing a ton of. I was starting to get the hang of setting up these things. As the sun started to set that night, I set back off for the hot island, my ship trying to go for a swim as usual. When I finally made it, I went over to the other side of the island I hadn't explored, setting down beside another gold deposit and my very first osmium deposit. I was pretty excited about that, putting a drill down immediately. Then I made myself this rock deposit scanner and used it to see what else I could find. There was a bunch of phosphorus along with the graphene that I needed to analyze next. I could see it on my map, but I was struggling to find it in the world. After a while searching, I eventually spotted this bit of dark rock sticking out of the ground, and sure enough, it was the graphene. I cleared out the dirt with my multi-tool and placed a drill on it. Once it had collected a couple of stacks, I took them with me and hopped in my ship. You know, the one I can't figure out how to drive. Eventually, I made it back to my main base on the first island, where I put the graphene into the material analyzer. This unlocked more new stuff, and now I need to analyze gold next. I had plenty of ingot in storage, but not the ore itself. Back to the ship. I knew I had plenty of gold ore in the drills on the second island, if I can just keep this thing out of the water. Once I gathered the gold, I took a detour, deciding to make a better base for this island. I wanted to test out these blocks you can place, sticking them down one at a time, Minecraft style. I made a little platform with them and built 2 compartments on top of it, along with an assembling bench inside, so I could make this stuff for a second material analyzer. I was tired of trying to fly over the water and didn't really want to do it again. The gold ore unlocked the alloy forge, a bulldozer, and a vehicle hangar. And next, I'll need to analyze osmium ingot. After that, I did a bit more building with the blocks and made myself a second high-capacity oxygen tank. I'm not sure what unlocked this extra equipment slot, but I'm definitely gonna use it. I've also noticed this day counter in my menu, which doesn't seem to line up with the night cycle at all. Not that I'm any good at counting. I built an alloy forge to see what it was all about. Looks like all of the alloys need material from the hot island, but placing it did unlock several new things I can build. Night wasn't far away though, and I headed over to the hot island when it came, getting to work on setting up a few things. I put a splitter on the graphene, sending part of it to a refiner, and setting it up with water and power. Then I set a drill on this iron for ingot, and placed the alloy forge between them both. It needed water for power too, and as the temperature started to rise, I finished connecting everything and started crafting my first steel alloy. And now I'd better get to making my first reinforced compartment. I kept thinking the heat would start getting to me, but despite the temperature continuing to rise, I was still just fine. I decided to make myself a ship platform here for charging and went in to explore this cave. Maybe it'll be cooler in there. It definitely wasn't cooler, but it was full of some very cool ore. Along with a bunch of uranium, there was sapphire. I collected all of it, checked in on my steel alloy production, then at 122 degrees Fahrenheit, the heat finally hit. It didn't do much damage, and I was able to get inside pretty quickly, spending my time crafting insulation layers to expand my reinforced base. I also added one of the analyzers here, a plant grower, and this reinforced window. I added even more compartments after that. I needed space for all these data centers that my next objective required. Once I placed 5 of them, I completed Terraformation Stage 3, which unlocked all sorts of things. I was so excited I made a quick run in the heat to place an analysis radar, revealing more new deposits on my map for ruby and sapphire. Then I checked to see what I needed to make this giant climate regulator. It required 50 thermal regulators, which I couldn't even make yet. As it cooled down outside, I placed another warehouse and started setting things up on conveyors to it. That night, I wanted to place a new V2 water supply, but found it needed something called a fast rotor that I also didn't have yet. Guess another regular pump will have to do for now. The alloy forges take a lot of water, and I finished setting this one up for osmium alloy, connecting it to the warehouse. Then I set a drill for cobalt, placing another warehouse to send it to, and found a cave full of amethyst. After clearing it out, I placed a battery and more solar panels for power. I had enough osmium ingots stored up now for the material analyzer, and did that next, unlocking the V3 conveyor, an advanced miner, a drilling vehicle, and a geothermal power plant. Ooh. The temp was up outside again, so I stayed inside and made some lunch. Food has been so easy to manage, I really just haven't even talked about it much. I also crafted some random parts I didn't have automated yet, and placed a planet analyzer here. I can access the same stuff from my menu, I just thought it'd look cool in front of this window. I remembered to check what I needed in the material analyzer next, and turns out it was phosphorus, which I already had plenty of. At this point, I wasn't super excited about it until I saw this unlock, a jetpack. If only I had the stuff to make it. Guess I'll just place this giant geothermal power plant instead, which produces about as much as 10 large solar panels. Then set up the carbon refiner to turn graphene into graphite rods, which I needed for the fast rotors. While I waited for enough to craft, I tried one of the new V2 advanced miners on this uranium deposit that was in a cave nearby with no luck. It did work on this sapphire deposit though, and I set up a conveyor sending it to the entrance of the cave for now. By then, I had plenty of graphite rods for the fast rotors, and switched out one of my smaller water pumps for this big one. It does 600 liters per second instead of the 100 the smaller ones provide. I think I'll just have to make another one of these big guys. I'd been struggling with water, and now I've got way more than I need. With that done, I switched the graphene carbon refiner over to make advanced filters. I needed them to make this new cooling module, which will allow me to go out in the heat. With my new heat resistance, I spent the morning adding a gem cutter to the sapphire mine. It turns the sapphire into a plasma conductor I really don't even need yet. Then it was back to the first island. It was so foggy, I landed for a while and waited for it to clear up. When I got there, I straightened out my gear production before heading over to the second island, where I set up this crazy looking conveyor for gold insulation layer production. There were still a lot of parts I was crafting regularly I wanted to automate, so I headed back to the hot island and started working on a whole new setup near some deposits. I started with a warehouse, a mine for iron, a forge, and a splitter. Then, when I was placing this assembly machine, I decided the warehouse was too close and backed it up a bit. There we go. It even left this nice flat spot out front for me to build on, and I spent most of my day placing various machines and conveyors all over the place to automate gear assemblies and osmium drills. I set up an extra graphene drill there too, along with a carbon refiner and a V2 water pump, finally testing out the V3 conveyor belt. It was so fast I could almost use it as a treadmill. I set up one more graphene drill next, with a splitter and 2 refiners this time. The graphene can be made into 4 different things there, including carbon fiber, which is used for the V2 conveyor. Which works out because I already used most of the osmium alloy and had to switch back to the basic belts. Not for long though, these faster ones are just way too fun. With gear assemblies automated, I could make the fast rotors a lot easier now, and stocked up on several that night. I'd made a lot of progress on automating things, and decided the next day to work on something a little different. I placed 3 of these new vehicle hangars, and started working on a platform in front of them, when I discovered you can click and drag to place these blocks. Well, that's good to know. I finished out the platform and added vehicle charge panels to each bay, along with windows and an air vent, which I'm pretty sure just looks cool. Then built this road up to this higher level before starting on the first of my new vehicles. This bulldozer. It needed energy cells, of course, and I ran over to my base to make those, then made this rover to take me back. Aw, isn't it cute? Too bad I really don't have any need for it thanks to my ship. I parked it and tested out the bulldozer next. It was fun, just a bit hard to control. I parked it too before adding another chunk of road and making the last vehicle, this tunnel drill, which ended up being my favorite. I drilled straight through the mountain and made myself a fancy little seaside road before taking it through another mountain all the way to the other side of the island. I took the road back and parked it too, then decided to go ahead and make a 4th vehicle hangar and finish the set with a new steamroller. I had one back on the first island, but making this one was a lot easier than trying to get that one over here. When I tried to park it though, I ran into a little problem. Luckily, you get everything back when you demolish stuff in this game, and I was a little more careful parking it the next time. Then started a whole new base here by the garage. Look, isn't it nice? I went that night to tunnel through another mountain when I found this cave full of goodies and an amethyst deposit. I gathered everything inside, then drilled myself another road right through the mountain. Okay, changed my mind. I will use this rover. I love this thing actually. Look at it go. At this point I realized I hadn't been doing much terraforming and decided it was about time I get back to that. I spent the morning setting up 2 of these area fertilizers. With the big water pumps, I'll be able to set these up a lot easier. That should make things a little greener around here. After that, I decided to go for this ruby deposit on my map, since it was the next thing I needed to analyze. I could see on my map it was up on the mountain somewhere, and I took my ship, finding a big cave in the side. Inside it was a ton of diamond and a few loose rubies, along with the deposit I was looking for. While I was at it, I explored some of the other caves on the mountain. This one on top had amethyst, one on the other side had more ruby, and then this last one was full of diamond and sapphire. I took the ruby I'd collected back, parking my ship and taking the rover over, then putting the ruby in the analyzer. Not only the ruby though, I also had the amethyst I needed next, and the uranium after that, the final analysis. This unlocked a ton of new stuff and set me back on my main goal for this game, terraforming the planet. Oh, after I make this jetpack of course. I put my jetpack right to good use, taking it up to the closest ruby cave that night, and starting work on what would be my craziest conveyor yet. By the next morning, I'd finished the curly-Q mess along with a gem cutter, and just like that, ruby was flowing off the mountain. The gem cutter was turning it into a laser emitter, and I added a whole new warehouse to store it in. Then I added a splitter so I could store the ore too. I also connected the sapphire mine before taking some time to admire my work. The conveyor looked so much like a water slide, I just couldn't resist taking a ride. With that setup, I set off to add more fertilizers. I finished another setup near the water on the hot island and checked the planet analyzer. It was showing a lot of fertilized regions, but still zero climate regulation or Earth-like atmosphere. Looks like I can use the ruby to make those thermal regulators though, which is what I've been needing to make the big climate regulator. It was so big, I took it up on top of the mountain to build it the next day, and just like that, climate regulation was on the way. Ooh, look! Another diamond cave. I checked my planet analyzer, and thinking I might have to make 4 more giant climate regulators, I spent the day automating sensor arrays. It took a setup with 3 different assembly machines, which ended up being quite satisfying to put together, but also ended up being a little pointless, because as soon as I finished it, I got the notification I'd completed Terraformation Stage 4. Oh. Well, never mind that then. Guess 1 was enough, and now I need this atmospheric control tower instead. It needed a bunch of these catalytic converters made from phosphorus and advanced filters. Time for 1 more crazy conveyor belt. I had advanced filters already going into this T2 warehouse, and for the first time I used the output on the back of it, sending the filters a very long way over to where I knew this cave had a phosphorus deposit. With that set up, I moved on to automating these composite beams I needed too. They took iron beams, which took a bit of rearranging to set up. I had them automated back on the first island, but I needed osmium alloy too, which I can only make here. I had a pretty good grip on things though, and in no time I had the composite beams set up and heading to a warehouse. While I was at it, I also set up the osmium alloy to be made into saw blades. Now I just needed to wait for enough parts to be made, so in the meantime, I went to make something a little more fun. A new cargo ship. Maybe this one will be easier to fly. Or not. After the test drive, I parked it and switched back to my old ship, spending the rest of the day and most of the next placing more fertilizers. I wanted to make the whole place nice and green. I placed them all along the shore and ran some really long pipes, spreading a mixture of the small and big fertilizers all over any parts of the island that were still brown. The next day, I went searching for this diamond deposit on my map, finding it in a cave on the other side of the mountain on Hot Island. I built one of the V3 miners on it and found it can be turned into diamond drills or crystal lenses at the gem cutter. So I spent the night trying to set up everything on the side of the mountain. It may not be pretty, but eventually I got it all going and moved on to uranium next. With the new V3 miner, I could finally use the big deposits of it and sent it through a refiner, then right into storage. There was one more deposit I hadn't tapped into yet. This amethyst. It can be turned into energy crystals at the gem cutter, or combined with copper plates to make amethyst alloy at an alloy forge. Wait, scratch that, it needs copper ingots, not plates. I can use the new alloy to make these radiation isolants, and got to work next automating those. After that, I made my first nuclear reactor, because I almost had enough stuff to make the atmospheric control tower, but it needs a lot of power. And I needed the nuclear reactors to make this nuclear power plant, which also needs a water supply. While I was setting that up, I figured why not throw down some more fertilizers. This side of the island is still too brown. Once I got it all set up though, I realized the nuclear power plant also needed uranium, and that was on the other side of the mountain. Oops. So I went back and built it over there with the rest of my mess, splitting off some refined uranium to it, then connecting the water supply. With that set up, I was all ready to build the atmospheric tower, except the nuclear plant had used up all of the composite beams I needed for it. Luckily, I had them automated at least, and more were already being crafted. That's okay, I've got plenty of other new stuff I can build anyway, like this new spaceship. Well, I thought it was new. Turns out it's just the same one I've had since day one. Darn. At least I have a new nuclear energy cell to power it. The nuclear cell changed the energy time from 10 minutes to over an hour, which is nice, but way more than I'll ever need on this planet. I flew it over to the second island that day and set up gold alloy to craft, along with several more fertilizers. Then decided to build something I didn't really need, I just wanted it. A train. It's made to transport resources, but with the warehouses, I didn't really need that. Instead, I just wanted something fun to ride around. I had plenty of steel alloy and storage, and it was really easy to place these supports and connect them by rail. I spent the night setting it up across the second island. By morning, I'd mostly finished it and went to craft these reinforced frames to build a train station. As I was doing that, a tree grew right in front of me. Oh, hello there. There were a lot of trees now, actually, and I started to notice my oxygen was barely going down at all. Looks like there's 20% oxygen here now, and it says I'm on day 45, which is way off from my counting. I placed the train station, and then it was time to try and build across the water. I built a support out on this tiny bit of land poking out at the edge of the island, connected a rail, and took off with my jetpack, hoping I'd have enough energy to make it all the way across. Despite being a little nervous, I made it with plenty of energy left and continued the track around the shore of the hot island. I didn't go far there before deciding I wanted to test it out, adding a stopper and a train. All aboard. It worked great. Well, until I ran out of track. Guess it helps if I finish it. I finished it up on the second island and rode it back across to the hot island. I had enough stuff now to build this gigantic atmospheric control tower. I finished it by morning and it started creating a more Earth-like atmosphere, which should complete Terraformation Stage 5. While I waited for it to do its thing, I made some of these advanced panels just so I could test out the extremely fast V4 conveyor, which makes the V3 seem slow. I'd also unlocked this new T3 warehouse that increases item stacks by 10 up to 100. I didn't really need it for anything at the moment, I just wanted to build at least one. Then that night I made this new DNA replicator. I didn't really need it either, it turns out. But look, it makes trees. By the next day, the atmospheric tower had done its job, and level 5 terraformation was complete. For the next level, I just have to place some of these new habitats, which was easy enough. I crafted some computers and had enough to place the first T1 habitat, then took another break to do something fun, testing out this new boat. I think it filters water on some of the planets, but I made one for here anyway. It needed the vehicle energy cells for power, and some sort of energy crystals for terraformation I don't think you can find on this planet. It is a cool ride, at least. Later that day, I built my first advanced assembler. These can combine up to 3 things for different recipes, and I spent that night getting gold alloy, ceramic components, and amethyst alloy hooked up so I could craft the advanced panels. Then I used my first conveyor merger to combine it with composite beams for storage, though I apparently combined it all with myself too. After that, I had enough materials to finish up the 5 T1 habitats I needed, spreading them out over the 3 islands. For the T2, I needed more thermal regulators, and finished automating them as the sun set on day 36. I was able to build both of the T2 towers on day 37, completing Terraformation Stage 6. Only problem is, there is no Stage 7. Well, not yet anyway, so I spent a couple days finishing up my train track, connecting all 3 of the islands with it. Then built the final unlocks, including these teleportation pods that look really familiar, and one more giant building, this Earthlink communication tower.
It's so big. See if you can jump on it while it's building. Do it.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I could have finished out 100 days, but at this point, I was done with this place. There are some other planets that can be terraformed with some different mechanics to deal with. For now, though, I'll be moving on to something new. Thanks again to our sponsor, War Thunder. Check it out for free now on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or mobile, and use my links in the pinned comment or description to register. New and returning players who haven't played in 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack across PC and console, including multiple premium vehicles and other goodies. And in the meantime, you should go check out my adventures in a different game.